Hi, everyone. Give me 1 second.
Happy Monday, everybody. How are you? So, I'm doing a recording. I've been having some problems. My computer web camera is not working. It's just a black screen. Luckily, I was able to get this up and running. So, on Friday, I must say you guys did a fantastic job doing all of the converging lines to the one vanishing point. We are always going to be working in 1 point perspective. There's 2 point and 3 point, but we're a beginning class. We're strictly working with 1 point perspective. And so we're going to pause off this one. You guys did a great job. A few of you still turned it in the not the right annotation. So it's really important to watch that video on how to rotate your images. If your image is sideways, I will not give you a grade. I gave you a 0 out of 5. So make sure that you resubmit that the right direction, and then you'll get your points. Okay, so I'm just proving a point. I'm being stubborn about it because it's all about routines, and you're going to be sending me lots and lots of visuals, and it's important that I can read them and I don't have to twist my neck. I had neck surgery, remember? So I'm being very, very picky about this, and it's good practice for you. So I wanted to pause on this and give you a little reason for my madness and what's going on with that. I'm going to make the screen a little bit bigger so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, that's bigger. I'll take it. So I remember when we talked about using recycled cardboard. I prefer a cereal box, and I asked you guys to collect them. I used my one cereal box. It was really big, and it was fantastic. And I don't have an example of that, the pre-cut one, but this is what I created with my cereal box. You can see inside, it's a protective art folder. You can staple the sides if you have a stapler, but if your regular printer paper doesn't fit inside that, then I'd be really careful. You don't need to have stapled sides, but I just thought it was really cool. And I'm already practicing my art rules and my name and the art folder. And this is something that I would love for each and every one of you to do. And you do not have to write art rules or art folder, but you do have to have your name on it. And we're getting practice in right now so that you can do things at a higher level. You're not there yet, and I'm not done coloring this all in. It's baby steps. So this is some baby steps. We're going to learn some more baby steps on practice paper today and the next day, and hopefully we will be starting your folder, or you can do this on your if you can't get cardboard, which I'd love for you to get because this is really nice and stiff, is you can use your sketchbook cover. So that's your choice. But I made a little makeshift sketchbook here, and then I can use this to protect it and all of my art so that we don't get crumbled edges or crumbled papers. You always want to be nice to your artwork. So this is that sad face curve. This is another one that's kind of sad face. This is a straight across guideline. Remember what we're learning: guideline, merging lines, all these vocabulary words. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to flip this over and show you the wavy line that I started. So here's a wavy Miss Brown, and I haven't made it into 1 point perspective 3D letters yet, but I'm getting there. I wanted to show you the before, and then this is the second step, and then there's going to be shading. There's a method to my madness, I'm telling you, and I'm really excited for you. So this is what we're leading up to, and you can design this in many different ways, but we're not there yet. We're practicing. So today I have a video for you to help you wrap your mind around this a bit more. I'm going to go ahead and get started with that and turn off my video, and let's see if I can get this going. And play. Oh boy. Me and technology are not friends. Come on. This was playing a second ago. I don't know why.
Today we're outside looking at how to train your eye to better see perspective while you're walking in the street. It's a great way to get in extra practice when you're not drawing. Hi, my name's Kenzo, and this is Love Life Drawing. So perspective is something that I used to find quite intimidating, and I think that as well as understanding the principles, it's useful to just practice seeing it. Just get used to it while you're out and about. Even if you're not interested in landscapes or urban sketching, this way of practicing is indirectly useful for your life drawing too. So as Father Ted explained to Dougal, things that are further away look smaller, and we all know that. So that means that this side of the window looks shorter than this side, even though they're the same height in reality. And so these lines connecting them get narrower as they go further away. So again, that's pretty straightforward. The gap between two converging lines gets narrower and narrower until the gap disappears. And the point where the gap disappears is called the vanishing point. A scene like this is often described as single point perspective because the lines all end up at the same vanishing point. They all converge because they're all facing the same way. Okay, so we humans, we love to make things with these straight parallel lines, which is really useful because urban areas become like this grid that really helps us to get a visual understanding of perspective. And so here, we've got a nice example of some two-point perspective. These lines converge to this point and these converge to this point because they're pointing a different way. Sometimes you can see the vanishing point and sometimes it's not in your view. You may have heard of three-point perspective, which would be when you have a third point that lines converge to. In this case, it would be the vertical lines up the building, and the vanishing point would be really high up in the sky. So the truth is that this is a three-dimensional shape, this boxy building, and so three-point perspective is always going to apply to it. So what people describe as single point perspective or two-point perspective is just when one or two of the vanishing lines are so far away that the converging of the lines is barely visible. So the lines are almost parallel from our point of view. So that just means that the whole perspective thing and the vanishing point just become a bit irrelevant. So it's practical to see just the convergence to one point. So we're just going to keep things simple and start to look for when one vanishing point is relevant, how the lines converge to it, when two vanishing points are relevant, and those rare cases where three vanishing points are relevant. Another slightly complicated truth is that not everything is going to converge nicely to the same vanishing point, like in this image that I've done here. We can learn about this at the dining table when having breakfast. Each object is going to have its own vanishing points. When they're lined up with each other, they will happen to converge nicely to the same points. But if they weren't aligned, if they were pointing in different directions, they'd have different vanishing points. Then you can come out to the park and try to see how all these rules apply to organic shapes like trees. You know, it's a lot harder because they don't have those nice straight lines like in the street. You can imagine the straight lines around each tree or around a hedge to help make sense of what you're seeing. So here's another thing that's useful to look out for too. All the buildings on this street are the same size because this is a classic London street of terraced houses. And if we draw this house down here, we're likely to make it a bit bigger than it is because it's a house. How can it be so narrow? We're not going to realize how narrow it's become. If you measure the width from our point of view, the width of the faraway one is so small. So how can we make sense of that? Imagine you have a rectangle and draw a cross in it. The middle of the cross is the middle of the box. But if we make the lines converge to one end, they get narrower at one end, like we saw they do with the vanishing point. And then we draw a cross between the corners. Now we can see that the point where those lines cross is much closer to the narrower side. And that's what's happening in this street. This is the midpoint for this row of houses, but it's way off closer to the side where things have gotten smaller. We can even check this by counting how many windows are on each side of that line. And you can see there's about the same number of windows on each side. And you could keep dividing it into halves, and you can see how quickly things get really, really narrow. So we don't really think you need to understand and use all these perspective principles for figure drawings. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about and none of this makes sense, that's absolutely fine. These aren't architectural drawings, and there are other ways to make it work, even when there's foreshortening, without worrying about vanishing points and stuff like that. But I do think that doing this a little bit, looking for these lines while you're out and about, it just helps you get a little bit more used to it. It helps you get a bit more practice observing and understanding perspective so that you can get a better, more intuitive sense of it. So then, even if you're not consciously thinking about it, your eyes start to see it better. For example, it's really common when things are foreshortened in a figure to not really believe how short things are becoming and elongate them, to draw them less foreshortened than they are. But if you've been observing how narrow things get, often while you're out and about, it's going to help to break down that bad habit.
Okay. So now the reason I keep introducing this is because one point perspective is that really challenging, tricky little situation. So now we're going to get out a piece of paper, scratch paper, and we're going to practice going from above, below, and at the vanishing point. Some letters as a nice little warm up. And you're going to photograph this today and turn it in as a proof of practice.
In this tutorial, we're going to be talking about drawing letters with one-point perspective. So what we're going to begin with is the usual. We'll start with a horizon line somewhere on our page and a vanishing point somewhere on the horizon line. Next up, I'm just going to draw some letters. We'll do some block letters of a variety of shapes. And I'll draw the S a little bit slower so that we can see how to do it for those of you that have a challenge with it. Usually I start with just a curve, then I do a curve right inside and make the S with that. Then I connect the rest of the line, staying in equal distance as I go around it. And I think we'll add in a Q for good measure.
I'm going to pause this because I feel like she goes too fast. Oopsie. My bad.
You are erasing most of these converging lines, so we want to draw them lightly.
I went too far.
Then I connect the rest of the line, staying in equal distance as I go around it. And I think we'll add in a Q for good measure. Next up, we're